Okay.
Hi, my name is Erica Cohn, and I'm the director and producer of The Judge.
So now your movie is about the first female Sharia law judge in Palestine.
It's about the first woman judge to be appointed to any of the religious courts in the Middle East, including the Sharia courts.
Now you started this in 2012, I believe you had said earlier.
Yes.
How long did you film with her before going to post production and stuff? Was it just years of between now and then, or?
So we shot from 2012 to 2016, and we're editing from about probably 2015 on. I like to edit as we go. It really helps me kind of see the structure of the story and how we're progressing. So, we got to an assembly and then a rough cut and then multiple rough cuts and then finally after about 18 months total of editing, we ended up here.
Now, as someone who watches the news over here and has relatives who listen to chain emails, in 2012, Sharia law was not talked about much. But over the past few years, you've got certain states that have gone, we'll just say, for some reason they want to keep preventing it from happening even though it's not happening. How is this affecting you as a filmmaker in your process, in such a long process, when you have to reflect on how am I going to talk to the audience about this or address it to the audience?
Yeah, in 2012, anti-Sharia legislation was starting to be proposed. And there was a lot of fear about, how does Sharia law relate to U.S. law, and is there really concern of Sharia taking over the country? And there's no reality in that. That's not going to happen. There's no fear, and there shouldn't be any fear. But when I started this film, I think that Islamophobia was on the rise. It's been on the rise for a long time, and I had no idea when this film was going to be released that it would be so timely. And I had no idea it would be that much worse when the film was released.
Now, for the most part, it seems, at least in the Palestine area, it's purely for family court. It would be like, family court.
Yes.
Now, did you, while making the process, find yourself also dealing, just on your own informational background, finding out more from American family lawyers what the situation is like in a courtroom over here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting to do kind of comparative research on different legal frameworks. First and foremost, I studied Islamic feminism. I'm not a legal scholar, so I'm approaching this more from a background of understanding Islam and the history of women in Islam. But I could find myself kind of going down a rabbit hole of all the legal challenges and the legal backdrops and family law in the Middle East and how it relates to the U.S. And there's so much information, and it's actually really, really, really interesting because in the Middle East you have, remnants of Ottoman law and Israeli law and Jordanian law and British mandate and, then the specific school of Islamic thought in that region in the West Bank is the Hanafi Islamic school of thought, so that it differs from place to place. And I think, the majority of the Middle East post-colonization adopted the Sharia law to be specifically for the family courts.
Mm-hmm. Now, the one thing that really got me on the family court angle with the Sharia law was the guy who could just remarry without without divorcing or telling his other wife that this was happening. How often did that seem to crop up over there?
Well, you can't, there was recent legislation that was passed that you have to actually inform your previous wives, and so, it's important. You see in the film, the man comes to the court thinking that he's going to be able to get married again to a second wife, and he actually has to go back to the first wife's home and inform her and get written consent that she has been informed.
Now, were you filming, in the process of filming it, when the judge found herself basically being put to the desk instead of getting to handle cases? Was that while you were filming?
Yes, we were definitely filming throughout the whole process. For some of the instances that we weren't there during that exact moment, we used recreations and other kind of creative ways to tell those specific stories. But we were there from beginning to end in general.
That's so, because that was the part that really how did it, because you had built up a relationship with the judge over that time. How did it make you feel when you saw her fighting back and not just, well, I'm just going to work in this office until I can retire?
Yeah, Judge Khulud is a dear, dear friend and colleague, and has visited the U.S. and I've visited Palestine and her family multiple times. But even still, you're thousands of miles apart. And as a filmmaker, obviously, I'm documenting something as it unfolds. But as a friend, it was very hard to hear some of the things that she was going through in the course of the film, and not being there physically to be, for her to talk one-on-one about some of those things.
Now, you also mentioned earlier that you had some footage where she and her mentor were discussing certain changes to the law stuff. Will you ever put that out as some sort of short film or bonus feature to
Maybe.
generate?
It's a good idea.
Okay. And okay. And so now, as far as the movie goes, it is. You said it's opening up in the next week or so.
Yes, we open in New York next week on April 13th at Cinema Village. And then we go to LA and then a handful of other theaters around the US. And then from there, we'll be doing a lot of community screening engagement leading up to our broadcast on Independent Lens later this year. And after that, we'll be on Amazon.
So there'll be no excuse not to see this film if you want to see it.
No excuse.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and thanks for coming to Full Frame.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace.
Okay.